evening, everybody. This is Stuart Grossman, and we're ready to start our application bootcamp webinar. And Kathy is sitting right next to me here, Kathy Steblaj, who most of you know of quite well. She's our chief head student advisor, and she's done this webinar for, I don't know, how many years, Kathy, with me?
Probably seven.
Seven? I think even more than that. And so we're happy to have her back. And so I'll be here as a moderator, and she'll go through this webinar and give you guys all the information you need on the whole application process. So go ahead, Kathy.
Let him know about questions.
Oh, and so as far as questions go, the easiest way to do questions is to type them into the questions panel. And at a couple times during our time here, we'll take a break and go through a few questions, and then we'll try to continue on. So that's the best way to get your questions. And you can also maybe raise your hand. Maybe I'll call on you if we have time, but the question panel is the best way. Okay.
All right. Thank you, Stuart. And good evening, everyone. Welcome to our application boot camp. As you see here on our first screen, we are going to talk just very briefly about college selection because hopefully most of that is taken care of by now. We'll go through in detail the actual application process. We'll talk about the application essay, and then we'll talk about a senior checklist, both for fall, spring, or fall, winter, and spring. So here we go. So on college selection, we talked about having a list. I sometimes say 4 to 6 colleges, 4 to 8 colleges, depending on what your goals are. And hopefully that you've gone through and done the process so that you have a list of colleges that meet all of your criteria, that meet your particular needs. And I always say colleges that you're going to be happy at, because if you're going to spend 4 years at a college, you want to be happy or you won't do well. So hopefully you've completed your college exploration process and you have the actual list of colleges that you're going to apply to. Now, in the process, we hope that you have checked all of the admissions requirements, especially the core subject requirements, as well as any documents required. And when we talk about documents, we're talking about transcripts, recommendations, SAT or ACT scores, and so on. One of the reasons that we ask you to choose a minimum of 4 colleges is so that you have admissions and cost options, and we'll be talking about that. I have referred off and on to my students, and I'm sure the other counselors have, about Tier 1 colleges, Tier 2, and Tier 3. A little further on in the presentation, I'll differentiate those. But if you are applying to Tier 1 colleges, if those are your top choices, be sure that you also apply to at least 1 or 2 Tier 2 schools. So again, you have admissions options. The most cost-effective colleges for any of you will be in-state public universities, but we'll talk a little bit about private colleges in a few minutes. Tier 2 private colleges do give merit-based aid that can bring the cost sometimes down to that of a public university. Merit-based aid, of course, is based on the student's academic credentials. All right, a very brief discussion about Tier 1, 2, and 3 colleges. Obviously, Tier 1 are the most difficult, and whether they're Tier 1, Tier 2, or 3 depends on their competitiveness, how difficult they are to get into, and how difficult they are to stay there. And I'm not going to read all of this, but the criteria that the colleges use is the student's high school rank at the time of high school graduation and their test scores. The most difficult Tier 1 schools, you can see that the ACT or the SAT is 1310 or over, ACT 29 and over. These Tier 1 schools would be what we refer to as the Ivy League schools. In the West, your Stanfords, USCs, your Harvards, MITs, Rice, George Washington universities and so on. Tier 2 fall into two categories. We call them high tier 1 or high tier 2, and those would be under the very difficult category. And then the lower tier 2 would be the moderately difficult. And then tier 3, the minimally difficult. And if you would like to explore this a little more, if you go on our Career Cruising website and go into the school selector link of the Explore Education Options tab, you will see an explanation of the most difficult, very difficult, and moderately difficult. And when you are doing a college search on Career Cruising, you can see which level your particular college falls in. All right, let's talk about admissions requirements, and I divide those into those of public universities and private universities. For public universities, most of them automatically admit students who meet a certain GPA and/or test score. I know for example, WSU, Eastern, Western, it depends on the school, but it could be anywhere from a 3.3 up to a 3.6 or 7 where you're automatically admitted, or a particular test score. If you don't meet one of the automatic admissions, then you go through what we call a review process. And in the review process, the colleges look at the student holistically. They look at not just your academic achievement, but also they'll look at grade trends. For example, if you had a really bad freshman or sophomore year, maybe you were ill or whatever, but you did very well your junior year, they would consider that. That's what we mean by a grade trend. They'll look at the quality of your courses, and this is extremely important. They like to see that students have challenged themselves and taken a rigorous curriculum. They like to see advanced placement courses, international baccalaureate courses, but there are also rigorous courses that don't have to be AP or IB courses. They also look for involvement in the school and community. They like to see that a student can handle something other than just their academics. They like to see that they're involved in the community. Colleges like to see community service. They like to see leadership activities and so on and so forth. Also, they will look at special circumstances. And this is where it's important to let a college know if you have those. Maybe you were very ill for one of your years, and that is why your grades went down. Or maybe you had a death in the family or something that contributed to your grade trend. So always let colleges know that information. Um, and I think this next one is very important because you folks are coming up on your senior year. Your senior year curriculum is very important. I know I've heard many, many times from my students that, gee, I worked really hard for 11 years and I kind of want a free breeze at my senior year. You do not want to do that because colleges look very seriously at the senior year curriculum. They want to know that you've challenged yourself, because the more rigorous curriculum, the better chances you have of succeeding in college. And they want you to be successful your freshman year. Um, and oftentimes, if a student takes a real weak senior curriculum, even though they might have a strong grade point average or SAT scores, they may not get into that college for that reason. And always check to make sure you meet the core curriculum requirements. The state of Washington, public universities have a standard set of core curriculum requirements. Private schools, some of them have their own. Be sure that you look at that for every school that you're applying to, and you will find that on each school's website. All right, private universities, very similar. Some of them may have a little more rigorous admissions standards, not necessarily, especially obviously the tier 1 schools will have. Um, and always look at the college website, or if you have any questions about their admissions standards, I always say call admissions. Get the information directly from the college, and they can also give you a pretty good guesstimate of your chances of getting into their school when you give them your particular academic information. Private universities also look at the student holistically. Again, they like to see that a student is involved outside of the classroom. They like to see community service, leadership activities, student activities, and so on. And what you'll see in private universities that you don't see in public universities, generally, I guess I should say never, but generally, they sometimes will give preference to students who meet certain criteria such as diversity, religious, socioeconomic, or talent criteria. A lot of the private universities are religious universities, and they will tend to give preference to people in their particular denomination. Many of the private schools are secular. They're private, nonprofit, but not associated with a particular church or religion. But so if you are applying to private universities, you might want to consider all of this. All right, let's talk about the actual application process. There are currently three types of applications. Most of you have heard about these, but let's just go through them very briefly. The common application is used by most private colleges and some public universities. And the common application you can access online. It's on there currently. You can just Google common application. And when you get into the common application, you will create an account, have a password so that you can access it, save your information, go back to it at a later time. The common application can be sent to any of the private colleges that you will apply to, and some public universities will take the common application. The coalition application is relatively new. It's only been available for a couple of years now. It's similar to the to the common application. There are some differences, and one of them is, and I'll talk about this in a little more detail, but it has some tools that help students store their documents and so on that the common application does not have. There are over 125 private and public universities that currently use the coalition application. Very few of them are on the West Coast. There are only 10 colleges on the West Coast. In Washington, it's the University of Washington, Seattle, and Bothell. In Oregon, it's the University of Oregon and Reed College, which is private. And then in California, the Claremont McKenna schools, which would be Claremont McKenna, Harvey Mudd, and Pomona, all use the coalition application. And then in Arizona, both University of Arizona and Arizona State will use the application. And what I always suggest to my students is, you will check your college to see which application they accept. If you are applying to, for example, several private schools, you might find some of them that accept both the common application and the coalition, and then naturally you would only have to do one of those. The third type of application are for the individual public universities. As I said, some universities, public universities, will accept the common application, but most of them do not, and you will use their individual applications. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about these individual applications. As I said, the common application is accepted by most private colleges. When you have done your college selection, you know the colleges you're going to apply to, check their application website to see which application they accept. And in this case, you complete one application and one major essay, and then you send that to all of the private schools. This application is quite lengthy, and I suggest to students that you get started on it summer before school starts and you get so busy. This will take you some time, but you don't have to do it all at once. If you have a resume, it will be very helpful because there is an activities and a community service section on the common application. that if you have a resume, you can just transfer information from your resume onto the application. And what I always suggest when you do that, you're going to be given a limited amount of space. And so always start with the most recent activities and those you consider most relevant, and then work backwards because you may not be able to get everything into that section. Now, with the Common Application, after a university receives your application, most private universities will send you a supplement that will usually it's a one-page supplement with asking for some additional information, and there will usually be one or two shorter essays. The essay for the Common Application is a major essay. Those essay prompts are online now. There are 7 of them. You can choose the one that you think you can do the best job on. The word limitation is usually around 600 words, which is a good size essay, but most students have a hard time getting everything in 600 words. But expect to see a supplement coming from the private schools that you have applied to with the Common Application. All right, the coalition application, as I mentioned, there are 125 member colleges that the purpose of the coalition is they believe that they have improved the admissions process. As I said, most of them are unfortunately on the East Coast. There are 10 on the West Coast. And the unique thing about the coalition application is they provide a single centralized toolkit for students to organize and refine their application for numerous colleges. They call it the locker, and this locker will store essays, artwork, videos, recommendations, all kinds of things. And in order to really fully understand it, you actually need to get into the coalition application. Again, like the Common Application, you will create an account and then you will begin your application. Coalition essay prompts are currently online, and if you look at the essay prompts for the coalition and the Common Application, you will find that there are some that are similar. And so if you're applying to schools that require both the coalition and the Common Application, sometimes you can get away with just doing one major essay and using it for both applications. For example, the University of Washington accepts only the coalition application. That's the University of Washington, Seattle, and Bothell. And if you're also applying to some private universities where you're going to need to do the Common Application, check those essay prompts for both applications. You might be able to just do one major essay. Anyway, down at the bottom of this slide, you'll see the website for the coalition application, coalitionforcollegeaccess.org, but you can also just Google coalition application and you will be able to, get the application, create your account, and get started on it. Okay, public universities application. As I mentioned, some will use the Common and Coalition application, most will not. And so what you do is you just go into the college website and follow their application links. And when you get into the application link, it will ask you for freshman, transfer, whatever. And so you will, of course, follow the freshman application links. You will create an account just as you do with the other applications. Now, for the public universities, most of them do not have a required essay. Some will. Some of them will have a voluntary essay, and these are my thoughts on voluntary essays. If you are a good writer, I say do the essay because oftentimes it's that essay that's used to make final decisions. If there's, one space left and you have 2 candidates with the same academic credentials, but one has written an essay that's a good essay, that might just be what, pushes you over the top. So if you're a good writer, I say do the essay. If you're not a good writer, I say don't do the essay because it's voluntary. Okay, why am I not getting my... There we go. Okay, completing the application, and this will go for pretty much for all the applications. If you are wondering, okay, how do I know which application? Go to the college website, pull up their application link, and it will tell you if they require the common application or the coalition or not. Create your account, complete the information. You don't have to do it all at once. You can save it, come back to it at a later time. And then when you do go to submit the application, you will likely need a credit card because there will, in most cases, be an application fee. And that fee will be indicated on their application website. Now, this is important. In addition, you will need to send the following items that are listed there. Not all schools are going to require all of these, so check the application website and they will let you know what documents you need to send in. Official transcripts. Most colleges are going to ask for that, and the transcript that will be sent to them is the transcript that shows the end, goes through the end of your junior year. So your junior year official cumulative grade point average will what will be reported, all of the classes that you've taken up through your junior year. And in order to do that, you need to see your high school counselor. If you are homeschooled and are homeschooled through an organization, there will be someone that will help you with this. The transcript must be official. You cannot send one that you have yourself or that you've gotten offline or online, I mean. Anyway, an official means the counselor has signed it and stamped it with the official school seal, and then they can give it to you in a sealed envelope marked official, and you can send it in, or you can have the counselor send it in. Most high schools have a process through the counseling center where you tell them the schools you want transcripts sent to, and then they will send them. And then they generally indicate on the back of your transcript the date that the transcript was sent and to what schools so that you have a paper trail. Test scores must be sent directly from the SAT or the ACT. If when you did your registration form, you listed the schools you wanted test scores sent to, they will automatically be sent to those schools free of charge. If you did not do that, you will need to have them sent if your school requests them. And you do that by going to either the SAT or the ACT webpage, and there will be links for sending scores. There is a fee for each set of scores sent. It's usually about $11 to $12, and you will do all of that online. Some private schools are going to request a counselor page, and some schools are going to request recommendations. Do not send anything that is not requested because it won't be looked at, and only if they request it on the website. And then, of course, an essay if requested. So once you have done all of that, you've completed the application, save the information and do not send the information in until if you see that your school is beginning to accept applications in September, then you can go ahead and send them. And I'm going to talk about different types of application deadlines here. Why? Just can't get that to... Having a little technical difficulty here. There we go. Okay. I'll use that. 3 types of application deadlines. The first one is early decision. And when you do an early decision, they generally offer priority financial aid as well as other perks. It could be there's no required essay, or no application fee, possibly priority housing, and so on. And if you do early decision, this must be your first choice institution. And it's important to know that this is a binding decision. And therefore, if you choose early decision, you want to know that this is a school you want to go to, you know you will get in, and if you, can answer yes, this is where I want to go, and yes, I know I will get in, then go ahead and do that. We do not suggest the early decision for that very reason, because it's binding. And many schools have a November deadline, and then they will have another one in January. The application website will let you know that. The only way to get out of a binding decision is if they give you a financial aid package that you cannot, does not work for you. It's not sufficient. That is really the only way that you can gracefully get out of an early decision. Unfortunately, you aren't going to get that financial aid award letter until many of the college application deadlines have passed. So we just suggest that you don't do early decision. As I said, if you are offered early decision and you accept it, then you have to withdraw any other applications and offers that you may be considering. So this is a very serious one to think about if you do it. Okay, early action. This is the one that we would recommend. If you have preference institutions and they offer early action, we suggest that you do it. The earlier you get your applications in, the better. And the thing about early action is you are not obligated to accept this offer. So if you have applied to other colleges, you can still accept other offers without any restrictions. And early action usually also give you perks such as priority, financial aid, and so on. If you cannot find on the application website whether or not your school accepts early action, then simply call the admissions office. It's usually the fastest and easiest way, and they can tell you directly. We suggest applying as early as possible for a number of reasons. First of all, because now that the FAFSA is being accepted in October, we like to see the applications and the FAFSA go in concurrently, because for final financial aid award letters to be made, you must have been accepted to the university, and that university must have your FAFSA information. So early action is a good thing. Okay, then there is regular decision. And this is for any school you're interested in. Sometimes students change their mind during the fall and decide to apply to different schools, or for whatever reason haven't gotten your applications in. Just pay attention to the deadlines, because they will be on each college application website. They usually range from January 15th to May 31st. The University of Washington has the earliest regular decision deadline, and that is November 15th. If you're applying to any community colleges, their deadline is May 15th. That would be May 15th of your senior year. But we suggest applying in the fall, because programs fill very quickly. If you're going for the Associate of Arts degree, the AA degree, which is the transfer degree, you want to be able to get the classes that you want to get your general university requirements out of the way. So apply early so that you can get your testing done early, and then get your registration done early so you can get the classes that you want. Oops, let's see. There's the back arrow. I need to go back. I skipped a slide. There we go. Sorry. Okay, things to remember. And this all ties in with doing your applications. when you need a recommendation, hopefully you got some recommendations at the end of your junior year when teachers knew you well. If you weren't able to do that, then go early in September. I wouldn't do it probably the first 2 weeks when teachers are so busy, but when you request a recommendation, give the teacher a copy of your resume so they know things about you that they may not know, and give them at least 2 weeks lead time. Teachers are very busy, and never ask if, on Wednesday, if you can have it on Friday. That's not a good thing to do. Anyway, when you're doing your applications, a lot of, especially the public universities, will ask if you want to be considered for scholarships, and they'll have a box to check. Always look for that, because don't ever assume that just by sending in your application they are going to consider you for scholarships, because that's not necessarily the case. Be keenly aware, obviously, of all deadlines. Now, when you're doing your college applications, obviously use proper English and writing conventions. Um, you're going to be typing these online, and you want to be sure that your spelling is correct, and so on and so forth. Another suggestion is, once you do your applications, you want to create an application-specific email address and check it regularly. And by application-specific, I generally mean something that looks professional, not something that's off the wall. And check your email regularly. Once you've submitted your applications, I suggest checking it daily, because this is how colleges are going to communicate with you. And if you miss a deadline, or they have emailed you about something missing from your application and you don't respond to them, you may totally miss out. So be sure that you check your email regularly. If you have particular questions that aren't answered on the website, the best way to go about it is directly call admissions. The admissions phone numbers are on all the websites. Admissions always answers their phone, and usually the people that answer your phone can answer your questions. If they can't, then they will send you to a department that can answer it. If you have to leave a message, do. Um, and they will get back to you. Sometimes it might take a day or two. You can also email. My personal experience is I get better response when I call. I get my questions answered quicker than by email. If you are a Running Start student, you apply as a freshman. Even though you may have an AA degree, you still apply as a freshman, because there are certain things that they offer for freshmen that they don't offer for transfer students or upperclassmen. And once you've been admitted as a freshman, then they will evaluate your transcript and your AA degree, and then move you up to junior status. But apply as a freshman. And this last item here I can't overemphasize. Your senior year, even though you may have gotten your letters of acceptance in the spring of your junior year, your senior year is very important. Keep in mind that when you are admitted conditionally on a successful senior year, on completing successfully the college, or not the college, the high school classes that you have listed on your college application, because they will ask you what you are taking your senior year. And at the end of your senior year, you will have your final transcript, sent to the college that you have been admitted to, that you plan to attend, and they will compare that senior year transcript to your application to see to it that you completed those courses that you said that you were going to take. If you need to make a change to your schedule, unless it's an elective that wouldn't make much difference, but if it is a core curriculum class, an English, a math, or a science or a social studies class, or a world language class, if you're meeting your 2-year requirement, do not drop a semester of one of those classes, or if you do, contact admissions of the college you want to attend first and get directly from them if you will still be admitted with dropping that class. I have personally had cases of students that are in an AP class, and after first semester of their senior year, they've been admitted to their colleges of their choice, and then they dropped the second semester of that AP class. I have had 2 students who applied to the University of Washington, were admitted, and then were that admission was canceled because they had dropped classes second semester. So be sure, if you do have to make a change to your schedule, contact the college to make sure that it is okay with them. There. Okay. We talk to college admissions people frequently, and this is advice directly from admissions people both at the public and the private universities. And I've kind of insinuated this or made reference to this. You want to challenge yourself your senior year. Do not, if you can avoid it, take teacher assistants or non-scheduled periods unless you have good reason to. For example, if you have a couple of AP classes or a very rigorous schedule and you want to TA for a teacher that's in a field like, let's say you're interested in chemistry and want to major in chemistry and your chemistry teacher wants you to TA and help out in the labs, that would be okay. But you don't want to take TAs just to get out of taking regular classes. Admissions, as I mentioned earlier, like to see well-rounded students. They like to see students that are involved in extracurricular activities and community service. This next item I think is important. I hear a lot of times that students say, well, I'm not going to take any AP classes this year because I don't want them to hurt my GPA. Admissions would rather see a B in an AP or an IB class than an A in a regular class. So keep that in mind. If you work outside the school day, include that in your explanation of extracurricular activities. That's important to admissions. It means that you can balance school and work, that it says something about your work ethic. It says a lot about you. So be sure and put that into your explanation of extracurricular activities. And essays are critical. So we are going to talk about essays. Oh, darn it. Okay, college admissions essay. Um, Essays have always been important, but they're becoming more important than they used to be because college admissions are getting more stringent. And when they look at a student holistically, the essay can tell them a lot about you that your academic records don't tell you. And the important thing to know about this college admissions essay, you should have one goal, and that is to set yourself apart from the other applicants. And in doing so, um, think about after you've selected your prompt, be it the common application essay or the coalition or whatever, think in terms of how you're going to grab your reader and make them want to read on. These college admissions people that read essays read dozens of essays every day. And so you want yours to stand out above the others that they're reading. You want to definitely personalize your essay. And the schools want to know more about you as a person. They're interested in your character and your personality. So you want to sell yourself. Um, this is where it's okay to, talk about your achievements, talk about the things that you are passionate about, and so on. When you're choosing your application prompt, if you're doing either the coalition or the common application, choose a prompt that gives you an opportunity to talk about something that's really important to you. I mentioned talking about your passion. Um, You want to be able to write about something in depth. You want to be thoughtful, and you want to be reflective. Just think that this is your opportunity to let that admissions officer know that they should choose you for a place in their freshman class based on your essay. They're looking for creativity, obviously, your breadth of knowledge if you're talking about a particular subject area, and they're definitely looking for critical thinking skills, and I'll talk a little bit about that in a minute. What you should not do is write your resume. Also, they have a copy of your transcript. They see the AP classes that you've taken. They see your grade point average. They see your AP scores and so on. So don't talk about those in your essay because they already know all that. This is your opportunity to talk about things that they can't see with your transcript and so on. Few essay writing tips. Obviously, employ all standards of good writing. There is nothing that will turn off an admissions officer faster than seeing an essay that has misspelled words, poor sentence structure, so on and so forth. You want to have an introduction, a body, and a conclusion. And all of you know that from all of the English classes that you have taken. Um, when you come to your conclusion, this is an excellent place to show some critical thinking skills. Most of you that most of you as you write and have gone through your classes use critical thinking skills. You may not even recognize that you do. But when you analyze something, synthesize or evaluate, those are the highest levels of critical thinking skills. So think about when you are doing your conclusion, if you can analyze something that you have talked about in the body of your essay. Synthesize, meaning bringing two ideas together to form a new idea. I kind of think about it in music, using different sounds, joining them together to creating a new sound. That's what synthesizing is. That is one of the highest levels of critical thinking. And then, of course, evaluating. Evaluate an experience that you had as as to how it helped form your character and so on. So think in terms of that when you are writing your essay. After you've completed your essay, say to yourself, okay, have I done any analysis in this? Have I done any synthesis or evaluation? Obviously, use good spelling, grammar, sentence structure, and so on. And number 4, be concise. And that is a skill, a writing skill that is hard. It's hard to develop by some students. I know as a previous high school teacher, I would get essays where the student would write everything they knew about the subject, hoping somewhere in there was the right answer. And usually there was the right answer in there, but you do not want, and that isn't something you would do in an essay anyway, but be concise, but be complete. Um, and that kind of ties in also with your sentence structure. Don't use run-on sentences. Don't don't have several concepts in one paragraph or a couple of concepts in one sentence and so on. I've highlighted proofreading because I can't overemphasize how important that is. Don't just proofread yourself because when you've written something, you may not recognize that it's incorrect. Have someone proofread it that is familiar with good essay writing. I always suggest an English teacher if you have a parent that you think would do a good job. Great, do that, but definitely don't just proofread it yourself. And then that last one, keep all essays on your computer so they can be reused. Um, for many of you, you will be applying to scholarships, and a lot of scholarships require essays. And likely you can use your college essays, you can tweak them a little bit, maybe reduce them, whatever, but you don't have to, start all over and recreate the wheel. So keep all of them on your computer so that you can reuse them.
Hey, Kathy, do you want to take a few questions
Sure.
for
Yeah,
a
this
little
is a
break here?
good breaking point,
Okay.
stopping point, and we'll take a few questions.
So I'll read the question and you can answer. If an SAT score is strong but the ACT is not, will that hurt your chances of getting admitted?
No. Colleges will accept the highest set of scores from either test. And even if you have, let's say you took the SAT 3 times and the ACT 3 times, wherever they see that highest set of scores, that is the one that they will take. And I know a lot of students say, well, I didn't put the name of the college down because in case my score isn't good enough. As long as you have submitted what you think is your best score, then that is the score that they're going to accept.
So I have a question here. So can kids still take the SAT or ACT and send those in later after their applications are sent?
Yes and no. That what I would suggest is if you are taking the SAT or the ACT in the fall, excuse me, just a minute.
You can have it.
Okay, thank you. Anyway, if you are taking the SAT in the fall, there is an October 5th test and there is a September ACT test. I would recommend you taking one of those two. You can still meet the application deadlines. That way you can still apply early, but you can take later tests. Um, you, what will happen is once your application is submitted, once it goes to the actual review stage, it goes through several stages. Some people look at the actual application, some read the essays, and so on and so forth. If you have a test score submitted before they have gone through the final review stages, they will take those. So yes, go ahead and submit them. You don't know where they are at in the process, but it might be, if you test later and it's a very good score, you might be in there in time. But I would suggest doing, if you're testing in the fall, do the ACT in September, the SAT in October.
Okay. Another question is the review process applicable only if the student does not meet the SAT requirements?
Generally, yes, if you're talking about public schools. Um, because if you meet, for example, WSU and Eastern, if you meet their either their grade point average or their test score, they're automatically going to admit you. And so they're not going to send you into a review process. Private schools pretty much do a review or they look at everything. They look at you holistically. Most private schools do not have a set GPA that they have established that you're admitted if you meet that GPA or test scores. They look at their GPA and the test scores, but they look at everything else as well.
Okay, here's a general good question. If schools can't see your senior year load, how will they know if it's easy or rigorous?
Okay, what you do in your application, all applications are going to ask you to list your senior year classes. And they will be able to, these admissions people are experienced. They look at the high school that you're attending. They will be able to know if that curriculum is rigorous or not. If you're taking physics or you're taking calculus or you're taking pre-calculus or a creative writing class or an AP English class and so on. And so they will look at that. So that's important when you're filling out your application that you put in the classes that you're taking your senior year.
So how about if you do early action? Can you still do the updated SAT score because they're looking at things earlier?
Um, if you were to do the October 5th SAT, I've seen that those scores come back fairly quickly compared to the ones in the spring. It depends on when your school's early action deadline is. Usually they're not until November. And so you would still have an opportunity to take either the SAT or the ACT and still do early action. It would depend on when your college early action deadline is, but I've not seen any of them that are before November 15th, or I shouldn't say that, maybe November 1st. Sometimes they'll start taking applications in September, but their early application deadline is what you want to look for.
Okay, how about getting a recommendation letter from a retired teacher that taught you, but they're retired now? Is that okay?
I think that's fine. If Yes, I would say that because it would have to be fairly recent. I would think that they retired, but no, being retired, as long as they can address your, academic skills and your character and the various things that teachers write about in recommendations, that would be fine.
Okay, someone else wants to know if we can send a copy of the PowerPoint, even though it's being recorded, to people.
Um, okay, I just talked to Chris when he
Yep.
came in. Within 2 weeks, there will be a link where you will be able to pull up this presentation.
Okay, it's going to be on our website.
Right, it'll be on the website.
And just so you guys know, to be able to access that, you go onto our website, grossmancollegefunding.com, and then you go to the home page, and there's a link to all of our webinars that we've ever had, and that's password protected. So to go to that, you use the password Grossman, that's my name, of course, with a capital G, and then you can get access to this webinar or any others that we've had before. Okay, and should I submit a poor AP score? Anything below a 3?
Well, it's really not a matter of you submitting them because the AP scores are posted on the back of, at least in the state of Washington, all public schools have state transcripts, and AP scores are posted on the back of them. It isn't going to hurt you to have low AP scores. It's just a matter of whether or not you're going to get college credit. And for some public universities will accept threes, some private ones will only accept fours and fives. So it won't hurt. And like I said, you don't submit the AP scores. Those are already going to be submitted when your transcript is submitted.
Okay, well that's good for now. Let's do some more presentation, then we'll do the rest questions at the end.
Okay, a few words about scholarships. And I know that most of you know at least part of this, but the majority of the scholarship money is given directly by the colleges, about 95% of it. And now the question is, do you need a scholarship application? Most private schools, your admissions application is generally your scholarship application, but not always. What you should do is, if you can't find this information on the scholarship website, and when you go into a college website, they all will have a scholarship link. Go to that link and you should be able to see whether or not you need a separate application. For example, the WUI scholarship, the Western Undergraduate Exchange. Some schools, you're automatically considered for WUI if you're from one of the 13 states. Some of them require a special application. So check your scholarship website of the colleges you're applying to for that information. And if there is, check the deadline, because oftentimes the scholarship deadlines are before the application deadlines. So that is where most of your scholarship money is going to come from. And you will find out what you actually qualified for when you get your financial aid award letter, which will come after you get your admissions letter and after all of your FAFSA information has gone to your school. And so most of those financial aid award letters are going to start arriving in
March.
And then after that. There are some private scholarships out there, and they're definitely, I think, worth searching for. Um, Having been at a public high school here in Spokane, we in the counseling center handled the private scholarships. I think that's probably the case in most high schools. And so if I were you, I would check with your high school counselor. When we talk about private scholarships, these are scholarships that are generally offered by community organizations such as Kiwanis and the Elks and Better Business Bureau are some that I know of that offer private scholarships. And a lot of private businesses will offer scholarships to students of their employees. So check with your parents and have them check with the businesses that they work for and so on. I know at my high school, we had a scholarship website that we referred to students to, where we would list the private scholarships, what you needed to qualify, how much they were, due dates, and so on. And then as soon as that date was passed, we would take it off the website. So check in your counseling center to see if they have information for you on there. There are a number of national scholarship searches that you can look at. If you just Google scholarship searches, you'll find all kinds of things out there. Probably the best national one is FastWeb because you can develop a profile and it will help you look. Because the national scholarship searches are daunting because they're so long and it takes so much time to go through them. If you live in Washington, we have a scholarship organization called the Washboard. Uh, it is a private scholarship search for Washington State students only. And what's nice about it is because it is just Washington State, it really narrows the competition. What you do is you register on www.thewashboard.org. Washboard comes from Washington State Board of Education. And you will create a profile. It'll take you about 15 minutes. And then the site will begin to search for scholarships for you that match your profile. And then they will send them to you through your account, which is basically by email. They'll give you the application links. And it's a great way to search for private scholarships because they do the searching for you. If you get any of them, you can use them outside of the state of Washington. And that's really, I think, the best advice on searching for private scholarships. What I always suggest to my students is get your applications done first. If there are applications for your college scholarships for the colleges that you're applying to, get those done. Get all of that done and submitted. Get your testing done. And then heave a big sigh of relief. And then you've got time to look for private scholarships. Most private scholarships are given to seniors to be used one time their freshman year. And the busiest private scholarship months during your senior year will be November, December, January, February, and March. And so just check with your counseling center and register on the washboard, and good luck.
All right, next one.
Okay, now I have 3 slides left, and what I'm going to do is give you a senior checklist for fall, for winter, and for spring. And I'm going to go through this fairly quickly. It's pretty self-explanatory. Most of you know what you need to do, but if you haven't by fall taken the SAT or the ACT, we talked about that. Be sure you get that taken care of. This is an excellent time to do college visitations. You can submit your applications without having visited the college. You know, for whatever reasons that you are interested in that school, you would like to go there, and then do your visitations in the winter or during spring break before you have to make your final commitments, because it's those campus visits that oftentimes make you or help you make that final decision.
Can I say one thing about the
Yes.
SAT and ACT? Just a reminder, we have a really good SAT prep or ACT prep on our career cruising website. It's called Method Test Prep. And Kathy, you want to say some things about that?
Yes, I will. And I think most of you are aware of that, at least hopefully you are. It's one of the best test prep programs out there. And the way you access it, I know for the students that I've worked with, I will send them an attachment. But when you get on your home page of Career Cruising, the toolbar on the left-hand side, that major toolbar, the last item on it down at the bottom is the method test prep. And it will say SAT or ACT. You just click on the one that you want, and then you'll get the program. It's generally an 18-week program, although each week is only about an hour and a half to 2.5 hours. Some of my students do the entire thing during spring break or whenever. It's excellent. If you do that test prep, you don't need to do anything else. You don't need to buy a book or take a class or anything like that. So if you haven't taken the SAT or ACT or are retaking and haven't done that test prep, if you have done it, a good way to review is go directly to the practice tests at the end, take the practice test, they give you immediate feedback, see which ones you missed, and especially if you've missed clusters of such, say, math or whatever, then go back to those weeks or modules and do that rather than, trying to do the entire thing. Okay, college visitations, we talked about that. Contact colleges for specific questions regarding admissions, we've talked about that. Call or email them. In the fall, if you haven't already requested recommendations, do that. You want to submit the FAFSA in October.
Yeah, so it's not that critical at all to try to do something like October 1st or even the first week of October, because to tell you the truth, colleges aren't really looking at them that quickly. They're not going to look at your FAFSA unless you have your application in. So if your application's not in yet, they're not even going to look for your FAFSA. So our goal here is to get the FAFSAs done in October, usually by the end of the third week of October. And so when we have our FAFSA webinar next week, we'll go into all the details of all the information we need, how to properly fill out our Client Care Center web page. So we'll have all the information we need to do a good job on FAFSAs and on the CSS profile, which is a form that is in addition to the FAFSA for some of the more affluent or top private schools. But none of the state schools will need the CSS profile. But and almost all the private schools in the Northwest just like the FAFSA. So we'll go over all that next week, same time, 7 o'clock. You should have an invitation on that, and be sure to register for that webinar next week.
Okay, and also obviously in the fall, complete and submit your college applications depending on if you're doing early action. We suggest submitting them regardless in October. As I said, the earlier the better. The sooner you will get your letters of admissions, the sooner you will get your financial aid award letters and be able to plan. And that's very important. You'll want to be sure and have your official transcripts sent to the colleges that request them, which will be most of them. And then when all of that is done, you can start doing private scholarship searches. Okay, so that's your to-do list for the fall. And then for the winter, this will be any applications that you haven't yet submitted. As I mentioned, a lot of the application deadlines are not until January and February. If you're doing regular admissions and you have applications still not in, this is when you would do them. Continue working on scholarships. This is the time when you want to keep colleges updated of any changes in your curriculum or in any honors you receive. For example, some of you may find out that you are a National Merit Scholarship Commendation winner or semifinalist. Let your college, if you've already applied, know that, because that might help you get more merit-based aid. But any kind of changes in your curriculum or honors received and so on.
Awards, there's a lot of awards out there that I know a lot of you guys are getting. So those are the types of things that can, are more, they came through after your application got sent in. Be sure to let the colleges know about all these cool awards that you guys are getting.
Because those are the things that go into consideration when they are doling out merit-based aid. You want to watch for your FAFSA student aid report, and you will be going over in the workshop next week.
Yep.
This is where you will review what you initially sent in, make any necessary changes, and then you will submit it. And also,
so we will take care of any changes that need to be made, and we'll go over all that in detail next week.
Okay. And then spring. Okay, this is when your work is all done, pretty much. You're just waiting for your acceptance letters. This is where you will receive some of them earlier than this, and your financial aid awards, usually in March. And then if you feel that you were not given the financial aid that you think you could get.
Mm-hmm. So we help people out. We do a financial aid review, and we do an analysis to see if the financial aid offers are as good as we expect them, and so we'll help you with appeals if that makes a lot of sense. And just so you know, this part that we're going to do in the spring, we will have another webinar coming up, usually in mid-January, to go over all the steps that we go through in the springtime when we do look at financial aid offers and appeals, and kind of expand the slide in a whole webinar.
All right, and this is also when you want to notify your school of choice that you are accepting their offer, and they will let you know a deadline when they give you your financial aid award letter and so on, and they will let you know what kind of a deposit you need to send. Usually it's a deposit or a housing deposit, and they will give you a date that needs to be sent in, so pay close attention to that. And this next item I think is really important. If you have been accepted to several colleges, or even one more than the one that you're going to attend, be sure and notify the colleges that have accepted you but that you're not going to attend. Let them know that you will not be attending. And this is then to open up spaces for other students that might be on waiting lists. So it's just a respectful thing to do. Let the other colleges know that you're not going to be attending. And this next item is really important. Make arrangements to have your final transcript sent to your school. This is your final transcript at graduation, and usually schools have a particular procedure for having that final transcript sent. It's usually done by the counseling center, but just be sure that you are on top of that.
Okay.
And then congratulate yourself, pat yourself on the back, and good luck to all of you.
So before we're done, there's a few more questions. Let's try to get through some of the good ones here. Here's a good one, I think. So if you got AP tests that you're taking and the college credit is not a concern, is it worth taking the AP exam a second time to get a higher score? Does that make any difference for applications?
I would not do that. First of all, they're only given in May.
Right.
Of, if you, for example, if you're taking, you took AP US history this year, you took the May exam, you wouldn't have an opportunity to take another one until May of next year, and then it would be too late because you're already admitted and so on. So no.
Okay, here's the one. Scholarships, are there any of them that are not based on academics?
You know, there are. And what I suggest to students, there can be talent scholarships. What I suggest to students is when you are on your application website and you look at scholarships that are offered by the colleges that you are applying to, there
Well, there's music scholarships
there
for
are
sure.
music scholarships. There are obviously there's athletic scholarships. There's music scholarships. There are scholarships for diversity, and um, usually those are all listed on the scholarship website of the college that you're going to apply to. Just go through those and see if there's anything that you qualify for. Now, same thing with private scholarships. I know that there are scholarships for students of parents that have served in the military and so on. So there are scholarships for, you know, the majority of them are academic, but there are some others. You just have to find them.
Okay, here's a good one. Do you recommend submitting your admissions application even if you might automatically be admitted based on academics?
I'm sorry, I didn't understand that. Read that again.
Do you recommend submitting your admissions application? So I think in Idaho, for instance, a lot of times, so the state schools in Idaho will automatically, because they know your grades or something, somehow they get your grades.
And they send you
Right.
an acceptance.
Uh-huh.
You know, that's a good question, and I have to tell you, I don't know the answer to that one. That would be a question to call admissions and find out directly from them if they need an application.
Because that's the only state I know that they kind of do that.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, what's the best way to update the colleges on your honors or awards or changes? How do you do that?
What I would do is I would send an email to admissions, and I would ask that this information be applied to your application. Obviously, identify yourself, give your student number, and all of the identifying information. Again, you could also call admissions, and they might tell you to contact um, a particular office.
Okay. Then what is the average increase that we've seen by people doing the test method prep?
Okay, I cannot give you an average because I have never seen one. I do know that most of the students that I have worked with have increased their scores quite a bit. Some of them quite significantly, some of them 100 points, some of them maybe 20 points. Um, and the thing about doing the method test prep is I've talked to students that say they've done it, but they haven't really. And when I say
Right.
that is they haven't gone through it methodically, done the quizzes, done it all. But I guarantee you, if you go through that and do the entire program, do the practice tests at the end, see the areas of weakness, go back and look at those modules. Um, I guarantee you, you're going to increase your scores. Obviously, I can't tell you how much, but there are all kinds of test prep programs out there. There's the Khan Academy. Um, there are test prep programs that online that students pay for. I say you all have access to Career Cruising. Every one of you have an account. I would do the method test prep. It's excellent.
Yep. And like what Kathy said, a lot has to do with how well you do the work.
Mm-hmm.
If you just fly through it and just kind of breeze through it, it's not going to sink in and not be helpful to you when you take the test.
Right.
So, those quizzes are good because if you get good scores on the quizzes, you can move on. But if those quiz scores aren't so good, you should review that information and take that section again.
Right. And the thing that's nice about doing the quizzes after each week or each module is they give you explanations of why you missed them. And I think that's important. And the practice test doesn't do that, but the quizzes that you've already taken do that. The practice test will give you immediate feedback so you can go back to those modules.
Okay, is there any more? I think that's about it. We're running, kind of almost an hour and 20 minutes or so. So there might be a couple little more questions. If there's any questions that you guys have, be sure to just email them to our office, or you can email them to Kathy directly, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so thank you very much, Kathy, for taking some, your time this evening to do this webinar once again this year.
Well, thank you to students for joining us. It's been my pleasure to do this, and I hope it was helpful. And I just want to wish all of you the best of luck, and particularly have a great senior year.
So remember, we'll have this recording up hopefully in about a week, but 2 weeks at the latest. We got a person who does that stuff on our website. And I think it's a good idea to email out this the writing part of this webinar too.
And I think they do that automatically.
Right. All right. Well, we're done for tonight, and stay tuned for next week, 7 o'clock. Be sure to sign up for the FAFSA one that will be done by Chris Gray and Angie. And as you know, Angie is our specialist when it comes to all the FAFSA stuff. So she'll be leading that with Chris. And that will be a very good one to attend also. So have a good evening. Bye-bye.
Thank you, everyone. Bye-bye.